Hello and welcome back to the Real Estate Roundup. My name is Kobe Zinn, and I'm joined here today by my co-hosts Andres Martinez and Tony Flores, both real estate professionals in the great state of Texas. How are you guys doing this morning?
Awesome.
Great.
Yeah, so today we're going to be going over a topic that I think we will be covering quite a bit of information on for the next couple of weeks or maybe even months as information begin to come out and things begin to progress. And as we all know, it is the changes that are coming with the NAR settlement that have already come into play for the real estate industry. And for today's specifically, I think we're going to be covering what does it mean for the big brokerages that you're seeing out there where they're no longer offering broker to broker compensation. What does that mean for real estate professionals? What does it mean for the industry? And what does it mean for buyers and sellers in the marketplace as well? So it's going to be an interesting topic. And as things progress and as we get more information in the following weeks, we will be delivering that to you guys here watching and viewing our show as well. So let's just dig right on in and kind of explain to the audience here what does it mean for these brokerages out there implementing a new policy, which is basically they're no longer offering what was traditionally called broker to broker compensation between a buyer and seller agent. So Tony, I know you've been sitting in a lot of different meetings, a lot of different classes and trainings with brokers with our brokerage. So if you could, help us kind of break that down from your understanding what that is and what does it really mean for both the agents, the brokers, but also for the consumers as well.
Right. So to kind of recap, what the changes are, there's a couple of different changes that came out with the settlement. One is the listing brokerage, the people that the sellers are employing to sell their property can no longer advertise on the multiple listing system, which is known as the MLS. They can no longer advertise buyer side commission. So in the past, what the brokers were doing what's called cooperating brokerage agreements. So the seller signed with the listing broker. Okay, so the listing agent and listing broker, we have really kind of two entities there in many cases. The broker is responsible for the agent's activity unless that person was a broker themselves, and there are some solo brokerage, but unless that person was the broker themselves, they were acting on behalf of the brokerage. So that brokerage and that seller sign an agreement, and what they do is they had a commission, and so that commission was essentially at the closing table. That commission was kind of decoupled, or what they call decoupled, or they were bundled, and in the past they got split up at the closing table. So that commission was from the paid for in those cases. It was paid for by the seller, right? And it was agreed beforehand. It was negotiated beforehand. It was up for negotiation. What they agreed on was then split at the closing table. So what that cooperating agreement, what that broker was doing is saying, okay, we're gonna set aside X number of commission for the buying agent. The buying agent got paid. It was already advertised. That can no longer happen on the multiple listing service. Okay, that's the main thing. There are going to be other ways that the selling agent and they can advertise it. For instance, from my understanding now, as if it's not on the MLS, it has to be two clicks away from the MLS. So it can be offsite. My understanding is it can be shared on social media as well. It could be on a sign at the property. It could be on a set of keys. It could be on a flyer as well. It just cannot be tied to the multiple listing service. And why was that advertised in the past? Well, because the buyers wanted to know that they're already that their agent is going to be compensated as part of the whole package when they make the offer. Now, what's changed is when a buyer's looking for properties, they might not know automatically, or the agent who's helping them with find a property, they might not know what commission is available to their broker, right? And again, the broker receives the commission. The agent receives in part of the commission. So the broker has their expenses, then the agent gets a percentage of their commission, and of course they have to pay taxes and their driving expenses as well, things like that. So the next step would be like, okay, if there's no visibility on the MLS, how are they going to find out what kind of offer they can make on the property? And I think that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about different ways of strategies of that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's very interesting how the changes have affected, or what it's going to affect as far as how business is done within the real estate industry. I think there's going to be, a lot of buyers who are going to come into negotiations, or as far as their property search, with a different approach. And I would love to kind of get you guys' take on that as well. But Andres, you are more so on the new build, new construction side, right? As a new home sales rep. So with these changes, what are the effects that you're seeing on the new construction side? Because for new construction homes, for people who don't know, there's not necessarily a listing agent, right? Because you guys are the sellers, are the principals on the properties.
So as far as for us, we haven't seen much of, or we're not foreseeing any changes to normal day-to-day business. Where I think we're going to be seeing, there's going to be, because our commission is pretty straightforward, right? We're able to communicate that. If it's not on the MLS, even though we do list our properties on the MLS, that just wouldn't be listed on the MLS. So moving forward, usually as a new sales rep, what we bank on and what we do is we build relationships with realtors. Realtors have always traditionally reached out, hey, do you have something that could work for me? And then they'll ask me, like, hey, how much commission is this paying? So, guys, when a realtor asks me how much commission I'm paying, I see it different than other people. And the way the realtor communicates that, let's just say, as a builder, we have a promotion of a 4 or 5%. Well, if there's a little bit extra, or your realtor is able to contribute to you, sometimes they try to seek a situation where they can help the buyer. So those communications have always been open and freely, not necessarily just for the compensation of just the agent uh, getting their compensation, but how the agent can help with their commission and contribute to possibly help a client get into a home. So, as far as for us, we don't foresee any change to the day to day business. What we are probably going to start seeing, because this is here upon us, I mean, it's happened rapidly now. It's going to go live here in the next couple hours. We're probably going to see buyer's reps, right? So what we're expecting is we're going to see realtors showing up with buyer's reps. And besides that, I don't think anything else should be different.
Yeah. So, from the builder side, right, it's a lot different. I think for a lot of agents and even buyers out there, this is something to be aware of, right? Because on the builders, they're not necessarily working with a listing agent, even though they're able to continue to market their new build properties very similarly, because it's their own properties as well. So I think now it's important to talk a little bit more about, what does it look like for a buyer to work with an agent moving forward, because I think there's a lot of buyers, especially now in the market where everything is not necessarily as, maybe as affordable as they had hoped, that, with this new change coming into play, could it affect, even their affordability on homes even more, right? Because now essentially they would be responsible for paying the buyer's broker commission, whereas in the past they wouldn't be. So, Tony, from your perspective, right, what are some things that a buyer needs to be aware of when they're entering into agreements with agents? And what are also some things that buyers can do in order to mitigate their costs a little bit and actually be able to afford the homes that they want to get into.
Okay, so one of the other changes that came along with this NAR settlement, this NAR agreement, is there cannot be showings with a buyer without a written agreement. So there's going to be more of a discussion. In the past where I could get a phone call and someone says, "Hey, I noticed this property on 123 Main Street. Can you go show it to me?" Well, that is what's called a customer. It's in real estate terms, that's what's called a customer, because they are I'm performing a customer service type transaction with them, but that's not what's considered a client. Now I can no longer take a customer and open the door and show them and give them kind of some of my feedback and my expertise on that without a written agreement that I'm either providing a singular showing to them, but it's going to explain, look, if I open this property to you and you end up buying it, we are going to establish a commission at that point, ahead of time. And for some people that might be uncomfortable because we might be unfamiliar with each other at the beginning. So I might not have been able to demonstrate my value just by a phone call. So that's going to take some time if you want to, have more of a discussion. What I do in those cases is I would either, let's go ahead and meet ahead of time. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what your needs. You see that I'm a good fit for you, and I feel like we could work together as well, because it is a two-way street. There's some people that might be a little bit challenging to work with, either as an agent or as a client as well. So we have to make decisions for ourselves. Is this a value for me? And if I'm investing my time with this client, is there a value that I see that they are a ready, willing, and able buyer to purchase? Okay, so we're going to get an agreement signed, and it could be dissolved. We don't continue to see eye to eye as well. We can just say, okay, we have to part ways. You give me a notice, or I'll give you a notice. Things can happen like that. What happens is there's called a procuring cause as well. So if I showed you that house and you and I was following up with you, and there was no issue, or where it wasn't any disagreement, and then later on you were to go back and to try to negotiate that house with either the listing agent or another real estate agent, and if I showed you and you became interested in that house because of that showing, there could be an issue there with procuring cause. So the main thing is you want to make sure you interview your agents, the people that you want representing you, because at the end of the day, that house, that listing, that property that you see, they have a representation agreement with the seller, right? So the people that are going to show that house are going to be representing the best interests of that seller. What you want in many, many cases, you're going to want someone representing your best interest. So there's a lot of things that we can do as a buyer's agent. The way we want to have our commission paid, ideally, is we want to get that up front in agreement with the seller. We want to say, we are going to offer this price, and then the seller is going to pay our part of the commission. So that's going to be the first option when I'm writing an offer. If the house is listed at $350,000 and the buyer is comfortable with that price, and we could either negotiate down from that. Obviously, there could be some competition, so we have to see where the market puts us as far as, if they have other offers or things like that. So if we put an offer for $350,000, we're going to write that that within that $350,000, my buyer's fee is going to be paid for along with that $350,000. So we don't need to worry about that. If they're not willing to do that, then we have to renegotiate go back to the table. The other thing that I can do is try to negotiate down for them to do other concessions, which could potentially be like a rate buy down. So my fee essentially is paid for because they are going to be paying contributions towards a rate buy down. And so the way I negotiate that would be like, we want X dollars towards a rate, and that would offset any fee that I've been that I'm going to be compensated for. So there's a lot of different ways that our fees can be paid for. It's not just, it's just kind of, in a way, it's half a dozen of one, 12 of another, how the saying goes. So at the end of the day, it kind of boils down to, what my buyers bring to the closing table and what their monthly payment is. So if either one of those don't work out for my buyer, then that's kind of where then we can move on and move forward. And there's some new home developments in that area. We could also look at those and take those into consideration, because there's going to be a lot more clarity there with builders. It's more like a menu pricing. You're going to get this. There's in a lot of cases, the builders, they can negotiate some sort of concessions. It could be window blinds, it could be appliances. So there could be some things that the builders are offering as well. So having a representation from a buyer agent at that point is also a really good idea. We work well with the sales reps like Andres, and we can help our clients find that right house, and it could be a new home. So we've got to be able to tell to existing home sellers that, look, if we're not able to find what my buyer needs, then it's okay for them, but we're going to be able to move on and find other properties as well, because as you know, there's just a lot of competition with existing homes on the market.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when you guys are, kind of talking a little bit about some of these changes coming with, the the new NAR lawsuits, it's important for people to understand that it's not necessarily that the buyers have to pay the buyer's broker or the buyer's agent, right? Just because they're signing the agreement with them doesn't mean they're locked in that they have to pay out the commission. There's different ways where, maybe even the sellers themselves will want to pay the buyer's broker commission, right? You mentioned that you're writing the offer. When you're putting in the offer, that's going to be one of the terms of the actual purchasing agreement as well, is that the sellers are going to be paying you, who are representing the buyers, in that scenario as well. So I think there's a lot of misconception out there where buyers think they have to pay their own agent or the buyer's broker, and it's not necessarily the case, right? Now, when it comes down to it, will it maybe they have to do it, maybe, but not necessarily all of the time as well. So the same thing for you, Andres, on the builder side, right? So you guys are essentially paying the buyer's brokers as the sellers. Are you guys essentially now going to require a buyer's representation, with an agent for when a buyer comes down to to your properties?
I think as far as I think the realtor needs to have the buyer representation as far as their own protection, right? So I think it's just going to be something that is just going to be done moving forward. I don't think there's going to be any more contracts being written without that buyer's representation. And that's more to protect the realtor, right? Because they want to make sure that they're compensated. So I think moving forward, I just think that's going to be the way of business for everyone in the real estate industry.
Yeah, and I mean the reason I asked that is because I think in the past we talked a little bit about what a builder looks for when it comes to agency between a real estate agent and a buyer, and I think in the past it was you just have to show up to the property, right, for the first time. So is that, I guess, going to be kind of still the same policy moving forward, or is it going to be a little bit of layer extra protection on top of that?
I think there will. I think for realtors, so I haven't got any clear direction on that. But I think for a realtor's got to have that layer of protection, and then have that face-to-face meeting, just to make sure they're compensated fairly. Um, and it's just one of those things too where there's so many questions, right? And we're in the industry and we work with each other every day and we have questions, right? And I think we'll have a lot more clarity, but in the initial stages, and I think just moving forward, that buyer's rep is going to be standard moving forward, which it has been in Texas, right? I've always worked with the buyer's rep. Um, but moving forward, they have created short forms where you can show one property, you could show a day of properties. So moving forward, just depending what agreement the realtor and their client, uh, that's what we're gonna move with moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. So as you guys can now can probably see, right? So there's a lot of changes going on, and even if you're within the industry, there's still a lot of confusion as well as far as like where the answers are coming from and what can be done and what's going to be the standard operating, way of doing business moving forward as well. And that's exactly what we're going to be kind of bringing and delivering in the next couple of weeks is as we see these changes in live time in the real estate industry as we're going out there, representing clients and working with people as well. We're going to be bringing these new changes and the new way of doing business and, essentially what you can expect moving forward as well. So as we start figuring all of this out together, we're going to be bringing you guys kind of the information that we're seeing on the front lines as well. So, just kind of wrap up here a little bit today. Do you guys, either one of you, have any last, I guess, tips for, what to expect moving forward, either for an agent or for potentially a consumer? And we'll start with you, Tony, and then we can wrap up with you, Andres.
Yeah, for sure. Got some final thoughts. So moving forward after or starting August 17th really is the day that everything has changed, right? So what does that mean? That means if you're interested in purchasing a house, you will need to have a signed buyer's representation agreement, whether that be for one property or for, a multitude of properties. It's possible that the agent will say, look, we're going to a model where you're going to compensate me for showings, and that's not unusual for professionals. When you go to the doctor, you pay them for the time that they, we're not doctors, right? But you pay the professionals, you pay them for their time as you're getting that service. When you use Uber, for example, you pay for the time that you're in Uber, So as real estate agents, what we've done is we've spent a lot of time with our clients, but not necessarily we haven't gotten paid until it gets to closing time. And that's when essentially we reap the rewards of the compensation of the time that we spent. But it could mean that you might get charged for a showing. You might get charged for the time. Look, I'm gonna charge X number of dollars per hour for the time that I spend with you going to the showings, things like that. So it might sound different from agent to agent because a lot of agents and a lot of brokerages haven't necessarily determined what does that look like moving forward. But it's not going to be so unusual that someone might get paid for showings and things like that. The other thing is that so what does it cost to be a buyer's agent? Well, of course, it costs us our time. It could, in many cases, we're spending money on our gas. We have to upkeep our vehicles as well to do those showings. The time we take to do research, So if I'm going to show a property, I want to do, and if my client's very interested in that property, I'm going to do a comparative market analysis. I could do see what else is available in that area. Of course, we pay for our MLS fees. We pay our brokerage for when we get paid as well. Pay our brokerage. Of course, we are all 1099. We are all independent contractors. We pay, we get a 1099. We pay our taxes through the compensation as well. So there's a lot of things that people don't see behind the curtains of, what does it really cost to be a realtor? But yeah, MLS fees, all those kind of things, everything pretty much adds up.
Yeah, absolutely. We can see it right within the industry. that these costs do add up for a real estate broker or real estate agent. And yeah, it's very important to understand that, as agents, we are professionals. And if you are a client or a customer going into any other professional service, right, how does how does that compensation work? So you might be seeing similar compensation structures now with these changes for real estate professionals as well. And same thing for you, Andres. Just to wrap up a little bit, any kind of last what to expect for both professionals and also clients?
As far as for realtors and clients, what I like about this is there's going to be complete transparency, right? There's going to be communication. It also opens up the door for negotiation, right? There's never been a written rule like you get this amount of commission or there's set amounts, right? It's always been a negotiation. So moving forward, this commission will be negotiated. But what I think in the industry where we disclose everything, we document everything, the documentation that's going to be required for that relationship between the buyer's agent and the realtor is going to be clear. There's no more guessing. How they break it down is going to be on a client. Uh, every client's going to possibly have a different agreement. Some clients might just want to see 5 houses with you, right? And if within those 5 houses they end up getting, then you have broke down the fee for your services, right? It's going to open up negotiations, but then you're also going to see what your realtor is going to be able to give you as value. There's a lot of value in realtors. They do a very good job. They go to bat for you. There's a lot of behind the scenes negotiation that they communicate, trying to work in the best interest of their client. And that's one of the things that I think people oversee. They oversee that all when you just put a number to something and you remove the emotion, right? Because the real estate industry is a very emotional industry, right? There's a lot of moving parts. You got to make sure you meet dates. You got to make sure that you build these relationships with trusted people so you could better serve your client. Now, you're going to see realtors show their value, which I am excited. I've always been around great realtors and had a great team around me, so I'm excited for those people to for those people to get the recognition that's long overdue.
That's a great kind of great little wrap up statement there as well. I think it's important for us to really stay on top of things as professionals in the industry moving forward in the next couple of weeks and really even couple months as well, because this is going to be a quite a bit of changes in the real estate industry. But like like you guys mentioned, real estate agents are professionals, and it's really a time for all of the world, if you will, to be able to see the actual value that real estate professionals provide. So it's going to be a positive thing if you really want to think about it that way as well. So guys, make sure to reach out to either Tony or Andres if you have any real estate needs. You can see that we're always staying on top of things, always trying to deliver the most up-to-date and accurate information. And you can see that they're working really, really hard to figure these things out, right, as the changes are coming into play as well. So make sure to reach out to them. Their contact information is in the description and the show notes down below this video. But other than that, appreciate you guys. Appreciate you tuning into the Real Estate Roundup. And make sure to tune in next week with our next weekly update on how these changes are going to play out. Take care.
Take care, guys.